The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Look at us, man. We're radio all the way around here.
Back on track, man.
When you're 30 or 40 out there.
30 or 40.
That's going to go right there, Peter. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Winemakers. I'm John Myers. Full house today. Brian Casey, Sam, Bart, and Peter Mathis. Hey, man, welcome back.
We're just first name basis.
Well, everybody knows you, Sam. Couturi, Bart Hansen.
Bart Hansen.
Well, John, before we get started, can I hijack the show for a minute?
Do.
Or let me just say, hey, I'm going to hijack the show for a minute.
Do.
I want to give a little shout out to some people who were here over the weekend. Ryan Durkin and Two Bottle Steph. I think, Sam, you saw that post that she posted.
Yeah.
They came in, they were podcast listeners, came in, tasted some wine. Immediately I knew when they came in, they had their own spit cups with handles.
Professionals.
That's when you know. And then they said they came here first, then they went to Extra Dimensional, and then they set up a tasting with the winemaker at Tidings. But when they ordered wine, it was
Ross Griggs.
It was
Reed Griggs.
Reed Griggs. Yeah.
Griggs.
Sorry, Reed.
Ross Graham, Reed Griggs. Cody. No. Yeah.
Still one of my favorite expressions of Moon Mountain Cabernet.
One of my
Tidings.
favorite episodes was listening to those guys talk about it.
Yeah. So they were smart enough to just reach out to him, give him a call, and set up a tasting in somewhere. I don't know where, an undisclosed location.
The personal spit cups is a flex that I appreciate. And also, for me, is like a reminder to other tasting rooms to put out freaking spit cups.
Right.
As a rule. Like, I don't know.
These were badass, though.
I mean, clearly.
I mean, I have to say, after being a tasting room now, or a tasting tank now, I've witnessed like people that come from tastings before, and you can definitely tell when they haven't been spitting, because you're kind of hesitant, like, okay, we're only on wine 3 here, and you're being silly.
There's spitters and there's droolers.
But the droolers are in the afternoon generally, and they're about an hour late. Anyway, when they ended up ordering wine, we're sending it back to Jersey City. It was like I came in and tasted wine. It was like all my favorite wines that they ordered. So I just want to give a shout out to them. Thank you guys for coming out. They have their own little tasting group, I think, that they do in New York or New Jersey. But they just seem like a lot of fun. And Two Bottle Steph, I recommend following her on Instagram too. She's got some cool.
And that's her handle on IG?
And it's Steph, Stef. You can find her.
Speaking of, I know we need more spitters.
Yeah. And then I want to say thank you to Bob and Judy. Sam and I went out to New Orleans and stayed in Uptown with a really nice couple and Barbara Gorder, and they put us up at their house, and
that must have been fun.
Went out to some nice restaurants, listened to some live music, really got the NOLA vibe.
Brian's first NOLA.
Yeah, that was my first. Heard a lot of brass. Hanging out there, and had my first beignets.
Enough? Not enough.
No, not enough.
Of any of
course. I'd love to go
and you
back.
know that
You guys
confection.
saw some live music?
I did. Sam kind of flew in at 2:00 in the morning one night. He was there for basically 24 hours, but I
think 31 hours total on the ground in Louisiana. But I planned it, it was the middle of harvest. I thought we'd be picking grapes, and, instead I could have stretched it out. Brought the wife, had a good week.
So what was your favorite meal?
God, they're all great and all very different, and honestly don't remember the names of any of the restaurants except for the Chloe, which was right around the corner that we walked to. Bacchanal. We went to Bacchanal, which is
Bacchanal.
Very cool little
Iconic.
space. Yeah, where you just buy your own bottles at the door and then go sit in the back and order whatever you want. There was no live music going on when we were there, but
That was the only bummer of the Bacchanal experience.
It was actually kind of nice because we got to just hang out and talk. Because where we were sitting, we would have been blown out by
Totally
by the music scene. And then I say let's get DTC Symposium out of the way at the beginning, because otherwise we'll always forget at the end. January 22nd through the 23rd.
Brian brought notes, Bart.
Right? It's and I looked it up. If you just go to DTC Symposium in your Google, it'll pop up for 2025, and the early bird
ends November 1st.
So you still have time to go on, and I highly recommend, if everyone's sitting at this table, I'm looking at Peter and Bart and Sam, everyone here, the way we survive in the wine industry is selling directly to our consumers. If you just did distribution at the level all of us here are doing it, it's not sustainable. So if you're working at one of those wineries and you want to come check out, you talk to a little bit of everyone does the lectures and just a lot of information, and we'll be there podcasting.
How about just come down and hang out with us after the DTC?
Well, and
I can
where
see
the party is.
I think,
with all due respect to our friends in the wonderful city of Concord, California, it's in Monterey this year, and it's way more of a destination. There's a list of great restaurants that aren't, corporate.
We got to think about reservations, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got, I mean, and
wait a minute. I thought
it all rolls into Eco Farm, and I just found out this morning our friend, the intrepid Isabel Gassier, is coming back into town for Eco Farm.
Excellent.
So,
Wait, the Intrepid? Is that what you
why
called
not?
her?
Yeah.
Is that a car? I don't know what that means.
I think there was a
Intrepid.
battleship.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was the
Not how I think of her, but
It was in the adjective term of intrepid, not the.
So when is DTC? The date?
January 21st through the 23rd, and we'll be there. We'll be there. Probably knock out 8 or 10 shows or something of some of the people that are doing lectures. I know Sam is. You going to be talking this year? No,
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean,
You are
wherever I go.
Let's get the last one out. You are going to be talking at Grenache Fest, which is going on in a week or two.
The 8th and 9th in Walla Walla. I think there's still some tickets available. 2 seminars. I'm doing the Friday afternoon one, domestic Grenache, and then I think the second seminar on Saturday is Spanish Grenache. Which should be Garnacha. So that'll be, and just a great lineup of wines pouring and some music, and the keeping the Walla Walla Sonoma connection going.
Yeah, and talking about Grenache, which is perfect transition for our guest today. The incomparable.
We landed the plane.
The intrepid Peter Mathis, who, I first met when I was at the Girl in the Fig, and I don't think I was there for 8 years. I don't think there was a day that we weren't pouring his Grenache by the glass.
Thank you, Brian.
It had nothing to do with me. I don't think I could have taken that thing off. The consumers would have revolted.
So here it is. It was March 29th of 2018. Was when we had you on.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 43.
Wow.
Episode 43.
Yeah.
What are you at now?
340 something.
343. Yeah.
Lord, you've been busy.
Yeah.
So
been gone a couple of weeks actually. So apologize to any listeners out there. It's finishing up harvest and getting.
I know we did better like in the middle of active harvest, and it was the after harvest come down.
The recovery period. Yeah.
Peter, how did your harvest go?
It went very well. Yeah, I was very pleased with the fruit itself. Everything came in at a kind of a reasonable schedule, other than the last pick. I had some fruit left out when it was after the big heat wave. That got a little sketchy, but other than that, we were kind of blessed with a good ripening period and conditions for getting everything out off the field.
Yeah. And I mean, you want to go into, that was a long time ago. Peter was on the show. If we want to kind of get a little.
You even recognize me?
You still look the same.
You may be getting younger, Peter.
I dyed my hair white.
That's what all the kids are doing these days.
It was COVID.
I mean, if you don't know Peter's name, if any of you bought any Ravenswood wine back in the day,
Plenty.
John Myers, I know, was drinking a lot of it.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, you just got a shout out. You just got a shout out on MJ's podcast. He recently had Morgan on, and Morgan was talking about when he came back from around grad school, he came back and worked harvest.
Yes.
And the discussion went around the fact that Joel was, for the most part, the sale had gone on. Joel was spending more time on the road than in the winery. And you, along with Gary Stinton and Jen Bellows, were the team that he worked with. And so what we want to know is, did Morgan know his way around the cellar?
He definitely knew how to taste wine. And
that makes perfect sense after hearing part of the podcast.
I don't mean that in any pejorative way. That's like the fundamental thing. It's like when I was train a winemaker, that's the first thing we would go through. And it'd take sometimes years before we could say that part of your education is complete. So Morgan came to the team, with full tasting skills, well-developed tasting skills. And he had a good sense of what had gone on in his youth in the earlier iteration of Ravenswood when we were up on the Grenache Road. See, when he came on board, we were down at the larger winery down near
Quarry.
Point. The Quarry Winery, exactly. So the processes had scaled up and changed somewhat, but he knew what he was doing.
But Peter, if you don't mind, can we talk about the Grenache Road property for a minute? Because it was Haywood Winery, and then it sat empty for quite a while.
It was something before Haywood,
and it was something before that, and I forget the name of that.
Me too.
But when you guys came in, you were a fairly sizable winery already, right? And
the day we walked in the door, we were that year. I think they had just gotten over 30,000 cases, 25 to 30,000 cases, which was big time to us. Let's say, but it really we were already in the steep part of the growth curve at that juncture, and it really exploded once we were up there
because that facility is not that big.
No, it isn't. And
it was old and antiquated then.
It was. We just worked that facility at unbelievable multiples of what it was designed for.
Yeah.
It was permitted for a maximum, I think, of 200 tons.
Right.
And we would crush 1,000 tons there.
Jesus. Call the fire marshal.
The statute of limitations had expired. We're all safe now. I can tell the whole story. We had a little wastewater problem over there. So and then I think we were allowed to bottle 20,000 cases. Or 30,000 cases, and the last year we were up there, we bottled 300,000
Jesus.
So it just ran. It ran every 5 days a week,
and
8 hours.
What year was that you guys moved in?
We moved in right around January 1st, 91.
91.
Yeah.
God, I guess I'm shocked that Ravenswood was that small still at 90. I mean, in 91.
It was really quite small when I started. My first harvest was 1990 with them. Yeah. We were down at Big Bend.
Right. Down there right by on the San Giacomo
place is kind of the burnt out warehouse that's down there now. We had like a 5,000 square foot building and, about 12 redwood open top fermenters and a few crazy old wooden tanks with the wax gate on them and stuff like that. There was no space anywhere, and then a warehouse out on 8th Street.
Right. I mean, I was going to say 25,000 cases, and that whatever shell of must have been insane. Also, I mean, that was a lot of wine to make in a nothing.
There was basically no period of the Ravenswood history that I wouldn't call insane. It was just it was so much fun, and we made a lot of really, really, really good wine.
Yeah,
and I want to shout out back to Morgan and his team now at Bedrock. speaking of really good wines, I have a large collection of Ravenswood wines from the past in my cellar, and the clear, amazing thing that I can always go back to and just have my head blown off is the Monte Rosso Zinfandel. Last week, I had an opportunity to try Morgan's Bedrock 22 Monte Rosso, and it was just a bravura event. It was just incredible how balanced, powerful, but elegant that wine was, with just unbelievable extract without ever seeming clunky at all, and clearly would age forever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just sent him
awesome.
Him and his team, Cody and Katie, message yesterday congratulating him. So here we are on air. Amazing wine. Thank you, colleagues.
Hey, it's an amazing history around here. You know, 91 and doing that kind of volume. And, I can understand why somebody looked at Ravenswood to buy.
Well, I mean,
from a corporate point of view.
Yeah, I mean, but that was many years later. I mean, the winery grew extensively after that. And a lot of it was the Vintner's blend and the Chardonnay was you guys made quite a bit of Chardonnay at that point?
Not so much. It was really Vintner's blend Zinfandel, but then followed by Vintner's blend Merlot.
That's right, yes.
And then it just kept growing. Cabernet, Syrah, Chardonnay. Yeah.
And what are they doing now?
The Ravenswood, the brand itself, I don't know.
It's essentially defunct.
It is. It was part of a big mega deal between Constellation Brands and Gallo. It was a brand that was considered just like pocket lint in the scope of this deal. The deal was just unbelievably large. And it was never even discussed. The problems were all in brandy and cheap sparkling wine. Cheap brandy and cheap sparkling wine. They fought with the federal agents around
the SEC.
Yeah, and then among themselves over it for years. I think about 3 years between when they started the deal and when it was allowed to close. And in the process, a lot of these brands that were the pocket lint were more or less abandoned. And
but was the production facility still running?
It was, and it continues to be. It did not transfer in the deal. It's owned by Constellation Brands.
Right.
And,
okay, that's what I thought.
Still operating. Yeah.
Because Constellation also has the old Côte de Bois facility also, right?
That one's shuttered.
That's shuttered. Yeah.
No, you know what? Frankly, the quarry is probably where they make fucking Snoop Dogg, Cali Red and the Martha Shard,
right?
All of Brian's favorite wines.
Shut your mouth.
It's okay, Brian.
There ain't nothing wrong with that Martha Stewart Chardonnay, FYI.
It's shizzle, baby.
You heard it here, you guys. You heard it here.
Haven't had it, Casey.
But if you look at one of those bottles, it's produced and bottled in Sonoma, California. So
we may have some
it out there
friends
and
who
on A Street.
Worked at Treasury that no longer work there that have given me insider info. Martha's particular, as you can imagine, about her wine. And if you want some, go to CVS. It's about $13. I highly recommend bringing it to maybe a baby shower. Would be the perfect setting.
And, you can't argue with wine at CVS or Rite Aid, because when we were tourists out here, that was exactly where we went on the way back to Sonoma, Michigan.
Yes, you can.
Well, at that point in time,
John.
come on, this is 30 years ago.
I know, but...
And I went in, I bought Ravenswood.
Okay. You can't argue with that. Come on.
The wine shop on the plaza was still open at that point, John.
Right? Plaza Liquors. And the one what was that? The Wine Exchange.
Yeah,
over there in Mercado.
That was a great spot.
Peter used to hang out in the back of the Wine Exchange.
I would go down there when when I was running the floor basically from 92 on at Ravenswood, and sometimes I could not find my staff. They just were gone. We had some satellite warehouses for barrels, and it's like, where are these guys? And I think probably by '94 or something, we got whenever pagers came out, I would be, typing in the pager machine. Where are you guys? Using some expletive, and so. And then if I really couldn't find them, I'd call the wine exchange, the bar, and they would almost always be there. And I'd say, Dan, send those guys back up to the winery.
It was such a, you sat there in that little half circle and in the back of the wine shop. It was a great spot.
It was.
Peter, when Ravenswood was sold, I think Joel was talking about, there was such little thought put into Ravenswood during that whole thing that his entire collection of wines, I think they weren't even interested when
it was the wine library that
it was prior to that.
Yeah.
It was a little earlier than that. It was about 2015 that the library was kind of at risk, let's say. It might have been sold off to employees for $1 a bottle, that kind of a risk, or destroyed. That's the way they were at that time. And I worked with Joel and Constellation executives as a way to exfiltrate the cream of the crop out of the library, which Joel has by and large.
Okay. Did you get some of those bottles?
I got a little love here and there.
Yeah.
I think he's still supplying places with that wine.
Yeah, it was a substantial volume of wine.
Yeah. All right,
let's get into what's new with Mathis. What's going on?
What is new with Mathis?
And when did this whole thing start? I obviously knew about it from working at the Grill and the Fig, but was it while you were working at Ravenswood? Were you making these wines?
It started just as an idea. In the 80s, mid to late 80s, I made furniture. I was living in the western hills of Massachusetts, snowy western, the Berkshires, mountainous area. And I got really
taking it all the way back.
It's really the way
great.
It happened.
That's great.
I got really interested in wine. And the wine that truly captivated me was the wines of the Southern Rhone, the Côte de Rhones or the Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Baccarat, Gigondas, like that. I didn't have a lot of money, so it was mostly Côte de Rhone that I was drinking, by the way. And
in the 80s in the Berkshires, where are you getting those wines?
What's that?
Where
I got it.
Like, was there a wine shop in town?
There was a superb wine shop in town. The name of which I cannot recall, but I do remember one of the partners who owned it, George Nejame. And his whole family was involved in the wine business, and they helped me out. They were just fabulous partners in my exploration of wine. They would give me their wholesale books, and I would just leaf through it and pick out a different case every week, a mixed case, which they would order to me at a small markup, and I'd go through it, tasting. Anyway, so I landed on these wines from the south of France as my kind of the thing I really loved, and I'd always made things my whole life, all kinds of things. At the time, I was making furniture, like I said, and I finally said to myself, I want to make one of these. I want to make a Côte de Rhone here in the United States. And I looked around. There was just a few people dabbling in Rhone wines at that time in the U.S. And famously, there was Randall Graham, right? The original of the rock stars of Rhone wines. So I could not see much connection between what was being produced in the U.S. and the French model. So anyway, I thought about where do I want to go to make this? I thought about returning to the motherland, Virginia, or coming out to California. Looked it over. California seemed clearly the most promising if I wanted to make something of real quality, and I did. came out here and I thought, who will I apprentice with to learn this craft? And I decided Zinfandel was probably the closest grape structurally and flavor profile, and I just guessed that would be the most applicable thing I could learn from to the Grenache thing. So
that checks out. Large berry variety, grown head trained pruning, and it's the California Rhone. We talk about that a lot, right?
Structurally and fruit profile, where it fits in the whole wine world is, for my mind, is very similar. The range of wines that gets made out of it, and anyways, I worked at Ravenswood for a while. All the while looking, I thought I'd stay.
Wait, but how did you? Did you like send in? This isn't not even computers. Did you call someone at Ravenswood and say?
I came out and visited the place and told them I was interested in working a harvest with them. In those days at Ravenswood, if you just promised to be sober, you were almost hired on the spot. And
wow.
It all worked out well. I had a kind of chemistry.
Keep your promise.
Yeah. Well, more than most of my colleagues. Let's put it that way.
Wasn't a real high
Those
bar.
are some crazy days. It was totally
to be sober. You just have to be the soberest.
it was like working on a pirate ship. That's literally. That's the way it felt when I was there at the early days of Ravenswood. A lot of fun. Pirates that had a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, remember, you're always better to show up hungover than not to show up, right?
Yeah.
So and
listen to that, kids.
And it's a little bit of a
sound advice.
It's a little bit of a you're showing character.
Yeah, you made it.
I've been
you
there.
made it.
Yeah.
Play through the pain, man.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. And your friends will usually help cover for you.
Play through the pain, and maybe they'll let you go home at noon.
How did you meet Joel?
I met him there that day that I came to visit the winery. And it was the spring of 90. I came out, made an appointment, I think, and met him and John Kemble, who was kind of the most involved with the actual production day to day at the time. And I learned quite a bit from John Kemble. I don't know if any of you all know him. He left for a career in wine in New Zealand in 93, I think. Yeah.
I know the name, but never met him.
Yeah.
I think Morgan dropped that name in that episode as well. That was a name that I didn't know.
The four. And it was
a great influence for me. Yeah.
So when did all this morph into Mathis, your passion project?
All this time I'm working there. I'm thinking about my project. I'm trying to find some land to buy, shopping. I didn't really have any money, which very dramatically limited my choices, let's say. And I was having so much fun at Ravenswood. I had so much opportunity to do just such a wide array of projects that were very interesting to me, and that I kind of just dragged my feet on it. But in 97, I finally found a great property kind of at the base of the Moon Mountain there, and the price was right. There was a little depression there, or recession, sorry. In that time period, land was cheap. It was just raw land. I had to clear it.
You told us this story. This is, and you should tell it because there
was no vineyard.
There was no vineyard. It was an oak forest, right?
It was a native mixed oak forest, and I spent 2 years literally clearing the land myself. Like every single hour that I wasn't working at Ravenswood that was daylight, I would be out there with a chainsaw. And in those days, the only way we got rid of, when we cleared land, you burned it. So I would bucket into things I could carry and dump into a burn pile. Just grueling work.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I did the whole thing solo. And
in a time when your neighbors didn't call you and said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Before you needed a permit.
Right.
Right.
It wasn't all smooth with the neighbors.
Yeah.
They were used to this land being like a park to them. You know, there were trails that went through it, and some people were used to walking through it with their dogs or whatever. And anyway, it's a small parcel. It's about a 7.5 acre parcel. And I'm a tree hugger, and it was
by hand?
I'm a tree hugger. It would and I didn't want to cut them all down. I'm thinking, where will I live on this property and things like that. So it was the trees that made the final cut. It was agonizing. I left a lot of trees out there, which I'm sure you know this, Sam. They really
it's not great
negatively
for
impact the vines to have trees near vines. But there you go.
You know, our lowly grapevines get outcompeted by the stately oak.
Strong root structure.
You're not exactly in the Moon Mountain AVA, but you're like contiguous, right next door to.
It's true. We chatted about this before, but when they were establishing the Moon Mountain AVA, I just wasn't interested at all in the whole thing. I was very happy identifying as Sonoma Valley. My heart was there. All the wines that I had made, the great wines that we had made at Ravenswood, they were appellated Sonoma Valley. And that was synonymous with top quality to me. And we were making, for example, the Monterosso Zinfandel, and that was labeled Sonoma Valley. We never used the Moon Mountain District and Old Hill and the Cook Vineyard and all these great vineyards.
That's where I grew up. Spent my first 6 years.
Where's
the Cook Vineyard?
Where was it?
Lovell Valley, kind of like
off of Lovell Valley,
Admiral Cook Lane on Lovell Valley Road. I think my dad planted it. I think he may have been a little bit of a sweat equity planting because that's we lived on the property. Admiral Cook's son, Charlie Cook, who was also in the Navy, was supposed to testify on the Pentagon Papers kind of guy, and retired to this property. And the vineyard now, I believe, has sort of just gone feral. It's gone back to the land. Yeah.
It was a wine. It made an impression on me in my education of Zinfandel and Sonoma.
It was a giant pile of rocks. It was a gnarly
not a very
vineyard.
giving wine.
difficult site.
Yeah. So that was my question. What is the soil of the Mathis vineyard like? I mean, it was oak woodland, so you probably have some pretty nicer, deeper soils, but do you also get that volcanic rock
it's a mix.
tumbling down the hill?
I've got some areas with some real dirt in it, and
that'd help. Yeah.
And then I have a few spots where it's quite shallow. Let's say, and it's an amazing mix of soil, and I have about 4.5 acres planted, and it's just astounding the diversity of soil in there.
And did you build your house up there also?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
It's a glorious site with fabulous views of the valley. You can see down to the city and the bay, and it's just
really
wonderful.
So how high up are you then?
I think the elevation at the top is it's between 400 and 500 feet.
Okay, so Sam, right on that line of
it's right on the line. 400 feet.
Yeah, so I was telling the story. They were, in negotiation for it, and I just didn't go to any of the meetings. I just assumed since I was planting down there that it would all get sucked in, but I didn't care. And so, as it turned out, they left me off. So it comes right to the corner of my property. Right. But hey, there you go. I'm cool with it. It's Sonoma Valley's who I am.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, for people that don't know, who aren't in the business, how do you go about putting in a vineyard? I mean, where do you?
Very slowly.
Yeah. I mean, because is your plan, you want to put enough in 1 year to actually be able to make at least a barrel of wine, right?
Yeah. Well, my plan was to make a full living off of it, let's say. So need a few barrels to do that.
Yeah.
So, I did it. I did it slow. It took me a long time to clear the land, And then I was unclear exactly what I wanted to plant. So I planted rootstock rather than, like a bench graft, something that's already has the top wood already going.
What rootstocks did you choose?
I have St. George, anticipating that I'd use cutting
Dinging rootstocks now, Bart.
The old vineyards. That's one of the best rootstocks to graft onto, virus stock especially. And I also planted 10114. I have two pretty different rootstocks in the ground up there. And I actually didn't graft in the first year. I waited 2 years, atypical, because I really didn't know what I wanted. I was still looking for the right mix. Again, my target is the Côte de Rhônes, the Château of Sapapes. So by then I know from my experience at Ravenswood that Syrah and Mourvèdre are not performing the right way here to provide the backup singers for the Grenache. And
what do you mean by that?
Well, now back in this time, it was a little cooler here, so that the Syrah was very lean and kind of grapefruity characters in that time when I was planting, and the Mourvèdre just wasn't getting ripe. It was very rare that it would truly reach any kind of concentration level. That I think that's changed today, and in fact, I'm kind of interested in grafting over some Mourvèdre into my field now. But at the time, there was only one vineyard that I'd ever worked with in the area that I thought was up to par. And anyway, I was so used to making wine with the classic Zinfandel partners, Carignan, Alicante Bouschet, and Petit Syrah, classic. And, almost every old vineyard has at least some of one of those, and sometimes a lot of all three. And I said that's the stuff. That stuff works for what I needed to bolster the Grenache and enhance its breadth of flavors and structural elements. And
color.
Color for sure, yeah.
Is that fill out the mid palate kind of thing?
Yeah. Oh, it's just amazing what the Petit Syrah is just an unbelievable fermentation partner for all kinds of red grapes. Yeah, it really enhances, what happens. Is that your experience?
I mean, yeah. What I was going to say to that is that I've always kind of wondered if the reason why Syrah tends to, in my opinion, Syrah tends to swamp Grenache and Mourvèdre here in Sonoma completely. Or in California. Mm-hmm. And I always likened it to the fact that in Chateauneuf, they have all those other varieties that kind of raise above the Syrah, or take away some of the intensity. If you think about Claret Blanc and Claret and all those other varieties, I'm not going to try to name them.
Tourette Noir, Vaccarat, Picardie.
Right, and those are all things that counteract what Syrah does. And here in California, for the most part, we only use 3.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And we don't have those other ones. So Syrah can dominate.
So it's sort of like a child's image of what the wines from the Rhones are. The ones that the story we tell ourselves here in the U.S., GSM. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that, and most wines from that area are way more G than they are anything else.
Well, at the very least, it's the wrong order.
What's that?
At the very least, it's the wrong order.
Right.
It should be GMS.
Yeah. If you're going to
at the very least,
and that's just it. It's if you look at the fields that were planted when they were planting Syrah in Sonoma County, I can only speak to that. It seemed like they were planting all the S and very little, if any, G and M, and that's the way it was started backwards.
It's Syrah. That's what you're tasting,
right?
Yeah. So I finally decide what I want to plant, and I finally, right before I'm ready to plant, I have access to new clones of Grenache that I just experienced tasting wine made from the increase block. Jeff Cohn down at Rosenblum, one of my Zinfandel colleagues.
Jeff who?
Yep. Never heard of him.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that sting out. A longtime friend and colleague, in Zinfandel production. He called me up. He knew I was going to go Grenache with my field, and he called me up and said, I made wine this year from 2 clones that I just got out from the increase block out near Davis. And they were fabulous. And he showed me the wines, and it's great. So that was, I'm unfortunately having a blank here. It was 5.
The clones?
Yeah.
5.
5?
No, 5.
You don't see them planted right now.
Are they on top clones? Or are they?
They're on top clones, yeah. Goodness, I can't pop it out of my mouth.
You got me on that one.
Jensen?
Well, there was Jensen, Calera, and then there were the Tablis clones,
Right.
which all had numbers, right?
And then Alban clones.
This is
and
on
Alban.
top.
This is on top, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think through that or call that in.
It's all right. Why don't you pour one of those bottles?
Yeah, I know.
Pass one of
So,
those
first
bottles
of all, the
down.
rosé was great. You guys over here on the east end of the table haven't dug into the rosé, but I thought it was delicious.
Yeah.
What was that, Peter?
Rosé of Grenache.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's a 23 Rosé of Grenache.
Come on,
It's,
Sam. I'm trying to keep up.
I grow it, I make it.
describe this variety. I've never heard of it. Yeah.
That is one of my favorite things to make.
Is that Saunier or is that purple?
No,
not at all.
It's all. It's
It's all the oak tree.
Yeah, exactly.
no. Rosé for me is. I take that seriously. This is never an afterthought for me. I think a lot of rosé that's made in California is just whatever. It's something a byproduct.
Byproduct, exactly.
Or just we need something for the tasting room. But
Cash flow.
I am clear what I want to make. I love rosé. I love to drink it. It's one of the most amazing food pairing wines in the world, and I think it's dramatically underappreciated here in the U.S. So in my household, we drink it 5 nights a week at least, from May through October.
Sam,
And then
anybody
just
else?
and then just 3 or 4 nights a week in the winter.
Well, we do drink it fairly often in the winter, but less often. Yeah. It just goes so well with the lighter fare of summer and the heat when you want something a little cooler in your mouth, And so I want to make something that's really low tannin. That's an important thing to me. I make it the way I like it, so it's very low tannin. I want good aromatics, really broad fruit characters in the mouth, and it's really about the balance of it. How it should be refreshing throughout its full temperature range. Brian, we talked about that.
This is something Peter would talk to me about long ago, that when you're trying rosés, try them when they're cold, but also let them warm up a little bit and then try them at room temp, because he said that's where you'll taste the flaws when it starts to warm up a bit.
They really show amazingly. And, like I was telling you earlier, if you're selling wine in like a by the glass program in a restaurant that has an outdoor seating place and the glasses sit in the sun, the last sip of those your customer is going to probably be 80 degrees, unless they're slamming it down, right?
Yeah. John Lasseter used to always say when we do the rosé blends is that I don't really care how it tastes when it's cold. He goes, but when I'm in the pool and it starts to warm up, I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
I want it to taste good.
It has to still be drinkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it gets warm and all you taste is the sulfur and the tartric acid.
Right. Peter, I know there was a few years back that our friend Todd down at Sonoma's Best was selling, it must have been end of vintage, and you had a good deal that you offered him. And I picked up a case of that rosé. Nice. And about a year ago, I was digging through my wine refrigerator and found a bottle. And I don't remember the vintage now, but it was 4 years old or so, and it was still just fresh as could be.
They hold up surprisingly well. I mean, they brown a little.
Sure.
They go onion skin, but the qualities in the mouth are really nice. So every vintage, when I'm making it, I'll line up the previous 4 or 5 vintages as reference points, as I'm kind of getting it ready for bottling. So see where it fits in and
So to go back to the original question is, so where does this part of the fruit come from, or from the ranch? Is it?
It comes from blocks that are planted onto the St. George. They get larger berries from there.
A little more vigor.
Yeah, a little more vigor. It just seemed better suited for the rosé side. I haven't done a lot of experimentation with it. It just worked, my original plan, and I've stuck with it over the years.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. No, and you get great minerality. I love when I first smell the wine, you get that. I call it pool water, but it's a childhood memory of getting out of a pool and laying on the hot cement instead of using a towel.
That's for the water on the cement with the sun. That's,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
I understand that.
Yeah.
It has the concrete.
Totally. Yeah.
So what are you pouring first here?
Next, let's try the 20 Grenache. You want to try that?
Heck yeah.
Okay.
And
I brought a 2010 too.
Ooh.
Oh, all right.
I have it. I got to evaluate it for something else later today.
Lucky us.
Oh.
Yeah.
Guinea pigs.
Happy to do your dirty work for you, Peter.
Well, I think it's interesting, to see
But you better
how
keep an eye on it. Sometimes John walks away with those bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to hand
It's
it.
a good habit.
And the bottles, how'd you decide on the bottles? You always use these bottles for the red?
Well, I was looking for something, classically the Grenaches are bottled into Burgundy glass, but some areas of the world, Australia, Spain, it goes into a Bordeaux glass.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure where I wanted to land on that and how to present it. I didn't want to follow the pack of the GSM world that was emerging when I was first releasing this. I found this bottle and I loved it, kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Closer to a Bordeaux bottle, but
Yeah, it's unique.
It is a unique bottle, yeah.
And you didn't.
Can we set the timeline on it a little bit? So you buy the land in 97.
Yeah.
2 years clearing it.
Yeah.
99. Probably another year of land prep before you put that rootstock in the ground.
The rootstock went in 99 and 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in for 2 years.
I must have grafted it in 2001.
Okay, grafted in 2001.
Yeah.
First
Maestro
fruit,
Preciado.
2000. Yeah, okay.
He was the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he guaranteed, by the way, I got to tell this, shout out to him. I don't know if he's still in the business, but he didn't guarantee me. He told me that it was a guarantee. He said that he would his take rate he would lose 1 in 1,000. Okay.
Oh.
That's 0.1%, right? Okay. And I'm like, this is crazy. Everything I've ever read, it says like 95 to 98%. This was European literature. And but he says, no, that's what it'll be. And he says, don't worry, I fix anything that doesn't take. And we grafted 7,500 vines, and 6 of them or 5 of them failed to take.
Wow.
And when I went back and looked at him, it probably wasn't his fault. I think I probably hit it with my mower.
Tractor blade.
Yeah. And it's like, but he came right out and fixed it.
Sal. He was the guy.
Preciado. And
I think his family is still in the business. I think they're still doing it.
They were flying his crew to Europe to graft in Bordeaux. He was grafting in Bordeaux because he told me that his take rate was it was more than a power of 10 higher than the closest.
I wonder what he was doing that was so different.
I don't know, but
watching those guys graft a vine was ballet.
It is. It's
especially as they go from vine to vine, down onto their knees. They have like a pad, either pads on their knees or a board to kneel on. That it's about the perfect cut from the scion wood to the rootstock and like making that as identical as possible. And I think that's
And
if
then
there was like a
lining it
secret
up.
to it, lining it up and making the piece that you cut out of each side, so you have this little chip that you can butt in, fitting perfectly.
Yeah.
So that there's no like stress on the vine, no, it's not being pushed or squeezed. It just like it was
unreal how accurate they were.
and it's about 45. I took I posted a video a long time ago. They were doing a Rossi Ranch.
I think you sped it up a little bit, but it
was
took like a minute.
It was like 60 seconds, and afterward he said he was going slow so that it would look better on film. That you could like see what he was doing. Otherwise, it's just a blur. 45 seconds per vine, and just like the muscle memory and it's ballet. It's ballet.
Master grafters.
Yeah, totally.
One of the most amazing things when they're cutting the scion wood, they're cutting buds off of a stick. It's really a pruning from a vineyard. Okay, so it's always cut to a 5-bud stick. They put it out in front of them and make 2 cuts to make a wedge about each bud. When they complete the second cut, the bud pops off of the stick and into their mouth. Okay,
Jesus.
it's like, and everyone's a swish. It doesn't hit the lip or anything.
Right.
Okay, so how do you do that? I have no idea. So they cut boop, boop, boop 5 times. Everyone goes right into their mouth, and they hold it in their mouth to keep it moist, they say, but until they...
That's the
insert
trick,
it
John.
Into the
Is that it?
That's what it is. It's saliva.
He also told me this. I do not believe it. That he told me that he selects with his tongue the one that fits the best to the wedge-shaped cuts he made on the roots. Okay.
Talk about
Do
marketing.
I believe that? No.
That's
I
a
don't.
first-class ticket to Bordeaux
Okay.
is what you get from that.
But yeah,
Nice branding there, man.
amazing.
Wow.
Okay, so budded in 91. I mean 2001. First fruit 3, 4.
I cropped it in 2003, small crop, and made wine from it. But I did not release that vintage. I released 2004.
Was the first vintage of.
What happened was I loved the 2003. When 2004 vintage came around, I made it, and it was substantially different from the 03. And then I didn't want to release something that was like an anomaly. I'm just establishing my brand, but I want to be consistent. So I waited until I harvested the 2005 and made the wine to see where this was going to land. Where am I headed here? And the 4 and 5 had a lot of similarities. Said, okay, this is who I'm going to be. The 03, as much as I love you, I'm not going to bottle you. And it was a small vintage too, first crop.
Yeah, so 04 was the first
release.
The first release of the
first
Mathis.
bottled vintage. Yeah. I
What is
wish I had bottled some of the 03 now.
Right. Just to
Yeah.
kind of try it and see what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 04 is just stunning. It's just an amazing treasure in my cellar.
How much do you keep of?
It
each
varies.
vintage?
I'm a little random about how I tuck it away at the very end, and sometimes I get confused. I ended up with like almost 50 cases of the 2007 by accident. But in most vintages, I try to tuck away, say, 10 or 12 cases.
Yeah.
And
I know a song that told me, "Don't save anything, sell it all."
it's smart.
Sitting next to you?
That's a
Seems
smart
to be
thing. It's
somehow.
just because it just that library thing. It just keeps getting bigger, and
Right.
bigger and bigger
It is
unless
a
you drink
storage
it.
problem.
Thank you.
And you
That is
hoard
the
it.
problem. Is
you
that
hoard
you
it, and
keep
I don't know
making
when to get
wine.
rid of it.
2 cases.
Right.
I released a older vintage 6-pack to my mailing list this last year to kind of clear out a little room. I sold them 2006 through 2011. It was
Nice.
fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun to put
Well,
them
and
together for.
Great range of vintages, 06 to 11 too.
Yeah.
You have a 7 in there, you got 10 in there, 11 totally being the anomaly. 8 and 9 were interesting.
Yeah. But I'll try and find the picture that I took at Pedroncelli when we were there, because they had their library.
Their warehouse was their library.
And it looked like a pyramid made by people high on crack. You know, there was no way that there was any order to it at all. It was just someone must have told him you got to keep a little bit of everything.
That's how it works.
And it just got to the point when you're making wine that long that it just turns into this. Yeah, it's complete insanity.
You find it, and you had 20 more cases than you thought.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's all, and so you stick it all on one pallet, and when you want to access it, it's the ones you want are at the bottom of the pallet.
It's not economically clever to save it and sell it later, but it's fun.
It's not economically clever to be in the wine business.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
As Artie so eloquently said on MJ's podcast. There's a lot of shout outs to MJ's podcast in this one. The wine business is the only business where when you're a winemaker, you have to pay on 30 days and you get paid on 1,500. You're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of which, where are you selling that first vintage? Were you familiar with?
Or say 2006, you're
walking around
Wine exchange.
There you go.
Right.
Selling it back to the.
I don't recall, but I might have had it in the fig by then. Yeah. And, boy.
I mean, 2006.
Way back. I can barely
I'm
remember.
sure
Because who's buying
John and
Grenache
Sandra
back then, right?
were
Yeah, they
stoked to get any local
Right.
Rhone variety on the list.
It's sold. It's sold pretty well. Yeah. It's always been a struggle. Selling things is not my jam. And it's taken me a long time to embrace that if I'm going to make it, I also have to sell it.
Right, that's the one last I statement that you need to put on the back label. I grow it, I make it. Reluctantly, I sell it.
I have to sell it.
I have to
That's
sell
perfect.
it.
That is perfect.
Buy some because I have to sell it.
Please, baby. Please, baby. Please, baby.
Well, you poured 20. Talk about people are going to say, okay, 2020 fire year. What was your thinking going into?
Yeah. I got that off before fire is the way I remember it.
So
does that sound right, Sam? I can't remember when the fire hit, but I think that.
The way the smoke was in 20,
Yeah.
And before the glass fire sort of wiped it all out, it kind of depended on the wind and elevation and exposure, whether things got smoky or not. And, it was also so freaking hot.
Things were ripe.
Yeah. You could pick things, before in early and mid-September.
I made two wines in
early September.
Yeah. I made two wines in 2020. It was Malbec and Zin, so both earlier ripeners, and it was hot. It was getting there anyway, and we definitely picked it before we wanted to, but we knew that if we didn't pick it then, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. So this has no smoke taint.
No.
And absolutely zero.
It's pure fruit.
Now I'm certain. I planted it.
Have any of you tasted 2020s that do have smoke taint that are out there?
I have, yes.
I've tasted somewhere.
Definitely.
It's still sort of young, I feel like. I've tasted some wines where the fruit isn't as pronounced as it normally would be. But I have a feeling that some of those wines, and I've even seen this on reviews for some wineries that did wines in 20. Normally it'll say drink between now and 2040 or whatever. And on a lot of the 20 wines I've noticed it says drink between now and 2030. Like it's like they almost like
drink now
cut out the
and Thursday.
Yeah.
You should have drank this.
Drink
if
mine
you own
next
this,
week.
Drink it already.
Yeah. But I haven't tasted anything that had, but honestly, I don't think I've had a lot. This might be the first 2020 red that I've had in a long time. Yeah.
And there's really not a lot of them out there.
Yeah. There's more than what you think, though.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Right. In some way, shape, might not say 20 on the bottle, but there's some
for me, this vintage came out quite well for me. I love the kind of raspberry fruit. And,
purity of fruit.
It's beautiful and has a lovely acidity too.
You always have a great backbone on these Grenaches, and so I would think there's a little something else that you're blending.
I have
in.
my other. There's Petit Syrah. I co-fermented always. There's Petit Syrah, Carignan. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in co-fermenting. It's I make wine the way I cook. And it's you would never blend your soup the day before or the minute before you serve it. You blend it together, the ingredients right from the beginning.
So we kind of have an idea of what the Petite Syrah and Alicante bring, color and texture.
Yeah.
What are you looking for the Carignan to give you?
The Carignan is clearly does two great things. It brightens the acidity with three great things. It also is a huge color bump, and it lowers the alcohol because in my field, it tastes fully ripe, beautiful and lovely at 19 to 20 Brix. Right. It's unbelievable. And at that point, my Grenache is at over 26. It's heading into trouble land from an alcohol standpoint. And so having a little dollop of that, there's not typically much. It's in the 4 to 8% range.
But basically, it's the water add.
The water add, yeah.
And the screaming acid.
It really makes a meaningful
screaming acid.
It makes a meaningful difference, So anyway, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the tannin from this, but the Grenache itself, those clones are quite tannic. It's surprising how tannic they are. Every now and then I'll make a half-ton ferment of just pure Grenache. It's a check-in sort of, and it's really shocking how tannic those, because this is small berry. I mean, this is really small.
Yeah. As for Grenache.
Yeah, well, it's small for almost anything, well, Sam. It was really surprising.
It's that Rocky Moon Mountain District soil.
These are small. When it's on the 10114. This is the part of the vineyard that's on 10114. It is among the smallest grapes you're going to see out there.
What's your winemaking process like? Is it basically informed by the Ravenswood, Joel Peterson, open top redwood, or you?
It is. It is.
And talk about that for us.
Yeah. Well, I was a little surprised to see it when I first came out to Ravenswood. I had a lot of book learning, and what I saw there was exactly 100% polar opposite of everything I had read in all the books that I had ever.
All right, that's your second piece of advice out there, kids.
So before
don't read the books, but don't show up.
Before I came out, I decided instead of going to school, I'd just read the books. I got all the books from Davis and Fresno and spent a year reading them, and then I read some French books too that had been translated, and I had a smirk on my face when I came in there and saw what they were doing in the harvest period. It's like every single vat of this is going to turn into vinegar. And first year, they survive. Nothing's gone. I go, that guy Joel is really lucky.
Right.
And the second year comes by, I don't have a smirk anymore, but I still think I'm predicting that these wines are not going to work out. Then 100% success again. And by year 3, I have embraced the idea that probably everything I ever read about winemaking was wrong. And so yes, I fully adopted the Joel Peterson model of winemaking. I prefer to use open top tanks for my ferments, but I do sometimes use a closed top tank. The key is just the style of co-fermenting. Absolutely, get it together right away. Watch the extraction levels. Get the right amount in there. It's typical ferment for me on skin is going to be 10, 12 days, let's say. Don't manipulate it too much. Get it into barrels. In my case, neutral barrels. I only use neutral oak barrels. And don't mess around with it. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, solid.
How are you evaluating this 2010 today?
How,
You said you had to evaluate it for a reason.
I'm looking at it to include in a winemaker dinner that I'm having.
Oh, where?
In a couple of weeks.
Oh, at Sweet D with the girl in the fig.
Sweet D. It's Sweet D.
Tickets still available?
Yeah,
give it a plug.
Yeah.
It's the dinner is on Saturday, November 2nd at Sweet D, which is a satellite facility of the famous Girl in the Fig restaurant here in Sonoma. I've got a few seats left. I need to. If you're listening to this podcast, you need to buy them immediately if you want to get on the list because it's coming up quick.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fun. We're going to taste through all the Mathis wines and do some library selections as well.
Cool.
And the chef, Jeremy Zimmerman, has made a really nice 5-course meal to go along with the wines.
And Bart, you just had a big dinner, didn't you, at the Star?
Not yet.
No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
But it's sold out, right?
Sold out, yeah.
Wow, wonderful.
Nice. Sold out before the reprieve one did.
I know Jasmine and Ian jumped on it and got tickets.
It's funny. I have a feeling that everybody going are all people that like I know and have tasted the wines. So I'm thinking about just going and letting people get up and talk about the wines and not saying anything, right?
You talk about the wine,
talk
Jasmine.
about the wine.
Yeah.
Jasmine, tell me a story about me.
You don't even have to go.
I like
Bart.
this plan for you.
No, I want to go because I want to eat the food and drink the wine.
You should fully, might be hard. Go incognito.
Well,
Full, dye your hair, wear a mask. I don't know, do something.
The other
Sit in
thing
the
was
back
is my
corner.
mom is going, which is a huge deal. And I thought I could just have her do it.
I will say, the only time I ever did stand-up comedy in front of my mother was the worst bomb. The biggest bomb I'd ever had in all of my Reno open mic career was my mom and my uncle in the back, and it wasn't just me. It was a bad night in the room, and there was somebody in front of me who was terrible. So I think point being, let somebody else bomb in front of your mother. I'm available that night. I'm not cheap, but I'm available. Okay, I'll go bomb for you.
All right, get your tickets for Peter's wine dinner.
Absolutely. Get on that. So you're going to taste this at Sweet D.
I'm just looking at it now. I'm going to include
Based on
some library wines, but
Because
let's have a look.
10 was how much wine did you make? A lot less wine that year?
10
Was
was
it a little smaller production
Well, he's in a state winery, so it's just a matter of,
of how much?
10 was
how much-
little bit. 11 was the really wet vintage.
Yeah.
10 was kind of a cool year though, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a foggy summer.
Let's try it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember it actually.
Phil was here.
The
He'd
way
make up
it's
some
always-
stuff that sounded really.
The way it's always
Believable.
performed is that it got fully ripe. Let's just say that.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
I mean, truth be told, I spent the summer of 2010 in a
Try.
giant cannabis warehouse in Oakland. So I don't know what the weather was like.
Really?
It was foggy. It was foggy in my brain.
Yeah, I was
anyway.
going to say you or the weatherman. 2010, this should be just awesome.
And Peter,
the
did you
color
say-
is different too. A little richer.
Of course. Did you say where you're making the wines?
It's moved around over the years. So for the longest time, I made it at Ravenswood. It was part of my contract there. In 2020 was the last vintage I produced there. It's 21. Since 21, I've been making it on 8th Street. Different wineries over the years. Yeah. I've made wine this year.
Where all the great wine gets made.
Yeah. There's quite a
Different
bit of
rotating facilities on 8th Street.
Yeah.
Got that great, unctuous, mushroomy thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in
Wow.
the mouth, it's got the licorice.
Yeah. I think this is a winner, Peter, for the dinner.
It reminds me of the salted plums that my wife brings from Asia. and also like some tea characters, like a really interesting little buzzing thing between an herbality and then
like black tea kind of thing?
the fruit. Yeah, the black tea. Yeah,
You want to
Both
go back?
Yeah, I do.
I want salted plums. I want to go back to that. Next time those come in,
I totally know what
I
you're
want a
talking
salted.
about.
I've never had a
those
salted
before, yeah.
plum.
Yeah.
So a cold, damp spring delayed both bud burst and flowering. 2010 in the growing season continued down a chilly vein of conditions. Some of the coolest on record. Producers were vigilant about the fight against disease.
Were they vigilant or vigilant?
Vigilant.
From,
I don't know
they're
why I
vigilant
volunteered
in here
to
from
do
the
this.
village.
Go Trojans.
The village.
Temperatures suddenly
Petaluma Village.
soared in August with sizzling highs caused problems with sunburn fruit, specifically cutting yields.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you guys...
Cool start to the summer, warm
But
vintage.
very, very hot vintage.
Yeah.
And fried some vineyards.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, because people probably pulled back, leafed, and tried to open things up so they didn't get a bunch of mildew in the middle of when they were being vigilant about their mildew.
Harvest began in late September, with only disruption being heavy rain halfway through October. Although the resulting wines varied hugely in quality, the best examples for fresh fruit and zippy acid and smooth velvety tannins, Zinfandel, Grenache, Pinot Noir, all delivered.
Here we go. It's almost like it was written for us.
Yep.
And Bart, you just posted something I had seen online. The headline: "Swift, uneventful Sonoma County wine grape harvest is a welcome change and may signal return of market balance. Hopes for long, wet winter follow near perfect growing year for this year, I guess." Yeah.
No, that was an article. The reason why I didn't post it online, I think I only shared it with our group.
Right. Okay.
I was mocking
Group
the
text.
fact that
It was all they were trying to will the market back to balance.
trying to will the market back to balance, and yet here we are, and what's going on with the market? It's a mess, right? So that was just
Yeah. Sort of journalistic optimism.
Well, I can, I mean, hey, at least they're trying. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2010. I remember the cold, foggy, like June, July, and then apparently it got hot
yeah.
for
Yeah,
August.
and I remember someone saying, "Wow, that's a pretty good wine for 2010 because it got so damn hot, and there was a lot of raisins and stuff." But
2010. Were you at Benziger or were you at Lassiter by then?
2010, I was at Lassiter. No, 2010, I was at Lassiter. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
you were Lassiter.
yeah, because Dane was born in 07. That's when I left Benziger. Yeah, the funny thing about that article was that was from the Sonoma County vintners and Sonoma County wine growers that harvest or that place that. Yeah.
So less unexpected that they would big up Pinot Noir and Zinfandel. The fact that they threw Grenache in there
Right.
in
that's
2010.
Pretty surprising.
Yeah.
What, I mean, there
wasn't
still,
I
there
might have.
still isn't enough.
No, I might have added the group.
Okay.
Peter, the acidity's great on
Well,
this.
we were.
Yeah. I love this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got like a little cinnamon spice in the finish for me. It's like, anyway, I love all these old vintages. Yeah. It's so cool to have this in your cellar, Yeah. And I love this period when I was released that 6-pack I told you about, the 06 through 11, because I tasted them so many times. And, when you got 6 open bottles, right, you end up drinking them over the next 6 days.
Right.
And it was fascinating to see how much better they got with each passing day. Like they never went too far. They just kept getting better.
Yeah.
It was they really evolved. Like I would read my notes from the day I uncorked them, and then the day I finally drank them for real at dinner. Notes had no correlation to what I was drinking.
Right.
It was just like,
Right.
oh my God, what am I supposed to? How am I going to explain this to my customers?
Don't.
It's like, yeah, I just say they're fabulous.
Right. Let them
And I
evolve.
recommend you drink them over a few days. Just to enjoy.
Sense of discovery.
Open several at a time, and then drink them over a few day period.
Right.
It's great advice in general.
And reorder.
And then reorder. But this is like, I mean, it's a 14-year-old wine. Old wine for somebody who says they don't like old wine. I'm thinking of our dear friend Barbara Gorder, friend of the podcast, friend of DTC, and our friends Bob and Judy in New Orleans. But she said the other day she doesn't like old wine. But you put this in front of her, you wouldn't say, oh, that's 15 years old.
But that's the thing is that most people, when they say they don't like old wine, and I was one of those people because I grew up watching this James Bond movies where they order a 47 Lafite in Monaco, and you think, God, that shit must taste incredible. Yeah. And then you try your first, 30, 40-year-old wine, and it tastes like mushrooms and wet leaves, and you're like, the fuck are these rich people doing? Like, I don't understand it at all. But then you get a hold of like a 67 David Bruce Zinfandel or a 73 Rioja or something like that, and you go, oh, this is what they're doing. So I mean, it's hit or miss, right? You got to, from reputable producer or people that are making wine to age or happen to get lucky one year where the conditions were perfect.
There's a direct line correlation with those two wines, though, Peter. I mean, it's... Yeah, that's one of the coolest
things.
This
is a state. This is the beauty of the state thing. Yeah. One winemaker through 25 vintages, 22 vintages, and it's... it's
awesome.
I haven't changed what I do. I haven't changed really meaningfully how I farm the field. The vines are older, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, you haven't done any replants or anything since the beginning?
No.
Huh.
Only the vines that he took out with his mower.
Well, I just left them old. Well, I've tried to replant. It just doesn't work.
The spot that the vine didn't grow, there's painful. A reason. Yeah.
I'm not going to drag 5-gallon buckets of water through my field all day long, just to water those separately. And that's what they need to actually survive.
Yeah. I know. Where's your water coming from?
It comes from a well.
Yeah.
I used to, initially I watered with municipal water. The cost of drilling a well was so high that I just put it off. And at that time, the water was fairly cheap. But that caught up with me.
Yeah. Now the well is cheaper.
Yeah, way cheaper.
Yeah.
Extremely cheaper.
Yeah. And so what are you doing besides making these wines?
Well, I live a wonderful Sonoma Valley life. Here, I live right in the middle of town. You guys know I play a lot of that silly game, pétanque.
I was going to say, are you still competing?
French bocce ball.
French bocce.
Yeah, he's one of the best. Actually.
I live
or is bocce French, Italian pétanque?
We just say bocce's for sissies.
Oh my God.
No.
And we're back.
Woo. That was a close one.
Pétanque took the board at.
Well, I mean, pétanque...
One of those aggressive balls.
Pétanque is aggressive because you will... Bocce, for the most part, is an underhand lob. Pétanque...
Well, the ball is bigger, heavier, maybe? I don't know if it's...
The bocce is kind of a rolling game.
Right.
In a completely flat, smooth surface in a box. Right?
And pétanque is in a space.
It's just simple. It's very simplistic. Whereas pétanque is played with smaller metal balls at a closer distance on very rough terrain, and you throw it in a way at the higher levels of play, you're smashing the other team's balls off the court. It's a very aggressive and strategically complex game. It is a little emotional. People get very fired up. In fact, like we share space with the bocce club there in Depot Park, and I sometimes go over to them and say, look, if you have any problem people over there, they get a little too aggressive, send them over to us.
So what I'm hearing is the Italian game is more civilized.
Your problem people are our lifetime members.
Right.
Future lifetime.
All right. So imagine the Big Lebowski. You got Jesus coming over. Bring Jesus over.
Yeah.
I don't petanque on the Sabbath.
There's a lot of attitude in petanque, let me tell you.
When you guys are like involving like tree roots and, rocks.
Whatever it takes.
Right.
Yeah.
My favorite petanque trivia is that the petanque balls weigh the same amount. It's the same amount of volume as a bottle of wine. It's 750 milligrams or milliliters.
They're the typical petanque bowl.
Oh,
the
so you have
legal
a
range,
distinct
650
advantage,
to
Peter.
800 grams.
Right.
Basically, the wine bottle.
Yeah.
It's a wine bottle.
And have you thrown a lot of wine bottles, Sam?
Not on purpose.
Just curious.
Into the recycling.
Into the
That's about
recycling.
it.
Underhand or overhand?
Right.
No.
All about where you want it to land, I guess, right?
All right. Let's try this. What's that other?
I got the UberBlend.
Okay. No,
The 2010 is fantastic.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Buy that ticket, get that library wine
Yeah,
dinner.
I think that's going to be on deck.
Yeah.
And for a while we were running the 2009 at the Girl and the Fig as on their kind of luxury menu by the bottle. That went really well, and I'm considering releasing a few cases to them of the 2010. Okay, UberBlend.
So you say there's a little co-fermentation going on in what's labeled as the Grenache.
Not a little, a lot.
A lot.
Oh no, sorry. In the Grenache, typical vintage is 85% Grenache.
85% Grenache.
Balance, just 1%, let's say, Alicante. I don't have much of it planted, just a few little bit. The Petit Syrah is interplanted, by the way, in the Grenache area, in hot spots. So right. I know what amount. And then the Carignan is in its own separate block. But so let's just say it's like 7 each Petite and Carignan, 1% Alicante Boucher, and the 85 Grenache. It changes year to year, but it's something like that. Okay, the UberBlend, though, totally different kind of wine that is... I started making it. I thought I would always just make the Grenache, but after just a few vintages, my creative juices were flowing. It's like I got to do something else here, and I started experimenting with what else I could create out of the grapes I had by selectively picking parts of the vineyard, and I pretty quickly settled on a Petit Syrah centric blend.
So even though the Petit Syrah is interplanted, you select pick the Petit Syrah?
Yeah, I sometimes, but I also can. I have it's all captured in a computer, and just in an Excel spreadsheet. Right. I can highlight an area that I'm going to pick.
Okay.
I'll go up 5 stakes and pick down, and it'll tell me right away what percentage is Petite and Grenache, and then I have to adjust the model about what is the yield differential between the two. But I can pretty closely predict it. And then there are places where the Petit Syrah is so dense I can just pick pets if I want to.
But wasn't there one year, and this goes back to, I think, when you were on the show the first time, wasn't the UberBlend at one point, wasn't there one of the wines that didn't come from the estate? Didn't you have to outsource something once?
No.
No?
No, it's always...
Okay. It's always just been a different workup of what you grow.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
We're losing hosts here.
That's right.
They're dropping like flies.
We're going to have...
John disappeared. Brian just left.
And charming.
Yeah. Pretty much it's soon it's going to just be Peter talking to himself.
Okay, so Sam, read the blend.
The blend here is, I'll do it in order of volume, not the way it's on the label. Not that I'm going to complain to the winemaker about that. It's 48% Petit Syrah, 33% Grenache, 11% Carignan, and 8% Alicante Boucher.
So that's, that I settled on this blend kind of strategy in general, where I love Petit Syrahs, pure ones. But they can be, you guys know how vicious they can be. It's very hard to make one that's drinkable at release unless you basically give it a 3 or 4 day ferment. It even hasn't even fermented. It's just grape juice that you bleed off and ferment like a white wine. So I love them, but it takes 15 years of bottle age before they really show. And I messed around with it, and I saw that if I kept it in the 40 to 50% range, typically in a cuvee, I could capture what I loved about Petite Sirah, but also make it more approachable at release. And I really like what the other grapes do. It's sort of I always describe it as the steel fist of Petite Sirah wrapped in the velvet glove of Carignan and Grenache. You know, they're softer, more supple, generous grapes.
That is what it is.
It's I really enjoy this wine. It's you guys know how difficult it is to sell something that doesn't fit in a neat category, and this is about a bad example of that as you can get. It's just like, how do you explain a wine like this in a restaurant or a wine shop?
Right.
There's no rack for it anywhere.
Where do they put it?
It's just in who knows what. So basically 100% of it goes to direct to consumer. People that have, I've encouraged to try it, they love it, and they keep reordering.
And what was the inspiration for the name?
UberBlend. It was actually it started out as simply the working name of the project, the code name of the project. I was working with a colleague at Ravenswood who had some marketing experience around it. And we just called it UberBlend. We never came up with anything better. It was time to label it. We'd already bottled it even. And we just stuck with Uber.
Works.
Yeah.
Because it predates Uber.
It was, yeah.
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 For those of you listening and wondering.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Uber
hard
blend.
to believe, Sam, that something predated you kids these days. Jesus.
Maybe you could sell it to some tech bros. You can order it from their phone. It'll show up at their door.
Right.
Sam, we didn't even have phones back then.
Right? You were paging your employees to find out what wine bar they were at.
I mean, I can so remember like at Kenwood when we would put wine from the crush pad down to the Temple of Oak. And you'd go over to the page and you'd hit the page and go, "I'm opening the valve now. Are you ready?" Yeah. And then you would wait to hear back on the page. "Yes, I'm ready." And then we bought walkie-talkies. Yeah, whoa.
Yeah. Big time.
This is also delicious. And I mean, the color on this is almost blue. It's really interesting how.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has 3 high colored varieties. So that's 6 by the percentage of this vintage. It's 67% at the top level of color.
Right.
The Pets is quite colored. Right. Alicante off the chart, and the Carignan not too far beyond Pets. So.
Carignan always has that, like, it's a different dark color. It's like almost it's like psychotropical.
Yeah, it can have a bluish tint in my field. Yeah. It's very noticeable. Just berry sampling. My fingers turn blue. Let's say. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I had a great yield of the Carignan this year, and it doesn't really ripen all the way. In most vintages, I shouldn't say it ripens physiologically to a. It's mature in its character, but it doesn't accumulate sugar.
Right.
And it'll sometimes top out at 22 bricks, let's say. This year it went all the way to 24, and I carved out a ton of it. It's in its separate block, and I made a small ferment out of it.
But it also holds on to acid really well, right?
Yeah, it does really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great grape.
Yeah.
I got the budwood from a really nice old vineyard up in Cloverdale that I'd worked with for, 15 years by the time I got the budwood, and it's just a fabulous vineyard. Yeah.
Cool. So what else is going on? This is where we like to ask, what do you think of the state of our wine business these days, and what are you excited about, and what are things that you shake your head about?
Well, I don't know where it's headed. Obviously it's in some period of difficulty. It feels different than the other downturns we've had in the past. I'm worried that I think there's going to be just a general decline in alcohol consumption.
Right.
That's what I think is underlying this problem. Right. There are other issues making it complex, but I think we're going to need to change. The industry needs to change. I'm hoping if people are going to drink less, which I wouldn't poo-poo that idea, I'm hoping they'll drink better and
drink more better.
In particular, they'll select the finest Mathis wines.
Exactly.
Why not?
I mean, it does feel that the people that are buying wine are more interested in the stories behind it and where it's coming from and what's in it.
Yeah, our California producers have, let's say, we've put a lot of not exactly great, fabulous wines out there. Understandably, it's just a business to a lot of the producers, but to the people like us here in this room, I mean, we're passionate about what we do. We really deeply care about what's in that bottle. It's not just to make money. I mean, obviously, we're not getting rich doing this. We're in the business because we have, it's like in our blood. We're just passionate about what we're making.
Well, and I think you're just now seeing people trying to work with that situation of the wine going down and drinking better wines and somehow caring about the industry. It's coming back in that fashion anyway. But you're right. I mean,
there was a lot of coasting.
Yeah,
there was a lot of coasting.
It was like, hey,
there was a lot of 30 years of growth, 30 years of commodification.
Yes.
Of private equity and all these things that aren't good for all of us, but were good for some people who made a lot of money. And
but they're treating wine like cereal.
Trading cards.
It's not right.
Totally,
right. Absolutely.
And I think a market correction for that, it's going to be really healthy. Sure, maybe some vineyards are going to get pulled out and some wineries will shrink or go away if they weren't, you're not positioned right. But I think on the other side of this, we're going to come out with a better wine industry.
Right. Yeah.
Better wine being appreciated and having access to the market because, the big guys shifted to, high noon.
Yeah.
Right? Shifted to seltzer, take that alcohol and put it into some other product and sort of separate some of the wheat from the chaff in this industry. And little guys with 4.5 acres that they painstakingly carved out of, the side of the hill, will have a chance to get a little more recognition on the other end.
Now people are shepherding the market and their brands. It's as in Barbara Gorder.
Right.
I mean, and her efforts.
Totally.
That's it.
And, and the DTC symposium in general that's the, as this industry has sort of evolved over the last few years, that event has evolved to represent, the needs of the 1,000 and 3,000 and 5,000 case operations, as opposed to, the 35 and 300,000 case operations.
Peter, any other shout outs for you? And you've got, again, do you want to detail the winemaker dinner?
I'd like to make a shout out to my wife, who is an amazing, not only amazing partner, but she's an incredible weeder in my vineyard. We crawl through there on our hands and knees 3 times a year to try to eradicate the dreaded sharp point fluvelens weed in our vineyard, along with some other stuff. But she's an amazing partner in this venture for me. And
great smile and great laugh too.
Yep. The light of my life, Nina Swastapani.
Yep, love the Nina.
Yeah. Smart.
Sam, shout-outs?
Making us all look bad. Not giving shout-outs to our spouses. Unless your spouse devotedly doesn't listen, then it doesn't matter. So I don't have to say anything. Thanks, Alice.
Yeah.
Shout-outs. We got some stuff happening. We'll be rolling out some fun wines for the holidays. We got a collab that I did with Jack Sporer over at Fresco. Maybe we'll throw a show together out of it. We did a Semillon project together,
which I can tell you tastes great, by the way.
One of
case
Brian's
you're wondering.
favorites. And we're gonna do a fun rollout of that on November 22nd. I think it's a Friday, the Friday before Thanksgiving week. And Jack's gonna hang out here in the tasting house, and I'm gonna go hang out at Dose Bar. The new sort of collab co-op tasting room over on Broadway, and we're gonna do some sort of trading places kind of experience and roll that wine out. So
Freaky Friday.
Yeah, Freaky Friday. Oh, you fucking nailed it. And we'll have fun with that.
You could be Lindsay Lohan.
Clearly.
Jack will be Jamie Lee Curtis.
Clearly.
And I don't know, Marty O'Reilly, New Year's Eve, make your plans, get a babysitter. We'll be back at Spassiani Theater. Shout out to the Guest of the Year podcast. Have we had our show since my episode of the Guest of the Year podcast dropped yet? So the Guest of the Year podcast is the Grateful Dead game show where contestants they hear a clip of music from the Grateful Dead, obviously, live show, and then they have to guess what year it came from. And I'm obsessed with it. I've listened to every episode, wanted to go on, never did anything about it because I was terrified. And the host's wife came in for a tasting. Like her big group of girlfriends, one of them saw us as like the Grateful Dead winery on Reddit. We're big on Reddit, John. And came into the tasting room, and she told her husband, this guy Mike from the Guest of the Year show, I'm going to the Grateful Dead winery. And he reached out and looked at all of our press and whatever and had me on as a guest set list curator for an episode of the Guest of the Year show. So that's out there, the Tournament of Champions.
So you were a curator, not a contestant.
No. Okay. Look, John, I'm obsessed clearly with the Grateful Dead music. These guys on this show are amazing.
It's a thing, Sam. Working here in the tasting room, the people that come in, it's a different level of fandom when they talk about their favorite versions of Althea or whatever it is.
When Jerry's pickups moved 2 inches back on his guitar, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it totally changed his tone." And you're like, "What the really?" Yeah. Okay.
But that goes right along with wine.
Totally. Well, that was kind of like a lot of the conversation ended up having was sort of the Grateful Dead's approach to music and how you can take that approach in wine and just like care about the sound above all and let the rest of it sort of fall into place.
Can only happen when you have a group like the Grateful Dead that actively encourages people to record all the shows.
Right, yeah, totally.
Which is like, that's why it doesn't happen with any other
There's no
group.
U2 Guest of the Year show.
No.
Right. The worst show ever. So my episode's out, and then friend of the family, Dennis McNally, did the most recent episode also, and gave us some shout outs there too. So that's a great fun listen. Kind of hear, we put it out on the Instagram. Hear me talk about wine and the Grateful Dead, just not in that order. So if you like this podcast, you'll love that one. So that's out there. Anything else going?
No, I've kind of enjoyed
big
watching.
Shout out to New York and Paul's trip to New York. If you're in New York and New Jersey, our friends from Jersey City, there'll be a lot of wine and we're doing a little bit of library wine release. So in the next few weeks, some cool.
That's why I was missing for the last 5 minutes. Paul and I were discussing logistics on a library wine.
Did you find it? Okay.
Yeah, we're good. We're going to make it happen.
Perfect.
That's what we do. And I've enjoyed watching or looking at Bard and MJ and all these people posting the most influential albums.
30 most influential. Yeah. It's been really fun going back to your memories and pulling these things out. And because it's what it's what moved you to what you listen to now. And so it's not as simple as like, I really like that album. It's like, why did that album put you on a different trajectory? At least that's the way I've been doing.
Yeah, it's nice seeing albums by The Call, which is one of my favorite groups from the 80s. And then MJ is kind of, and him and I are a little more in line with, he's got Tribe and De La and Terrence Trent D'Arby. And, I grew up hip-hoppity.
See, and hip hop. If hip hop for me was G Love, and to me it was like, listen to this blues album, right?
Yeah.
But that's I didn't get that experience.
Villagante listens to G Love his hip hop experience.
Yeah.
Right.
And I still haven't seen any Prince albums listed. I haven't seen any Van Morrison. So it's interesting to watch the stuff you guys come up with.
Well, and then you look at like our friends Travis Barkley, which is very much punk metal kind of inspirational stuff. So yeah, that's been a really fun process, and I'm getting down to like the last 7 days and trying to figure.
Maybe I'll jump on board. It seems like doing something for 30 days straight sounds terrifying for me.
That's the thing. I'm about top 5 albums. Once you get into 30, I'm like,
all right.
Bart, anything from you?
No, Wine Club is finally going out. Email will go out by the time you hear this. Hopefully, that's my challenge. Finishing it up.
You've heard it here first, folks.
Right? Exactly.
Check your inbox, and if there isn't anything, heckle Bart.
Right. They're already heckling me. 2 new Zinfandels or new releases of Zinfandel. So 2021 Los Chamazal, and then 2021 Rancho Agua Caliente from the now known as Abbott's Passage. So it's going to be a fun release with those 2 wines side by side. And other than that, the tank is going well. We're getting, continued reservations. So that's been great. And we've been having a lot of fun telling the story of the tank. And more stuff coming out. Someone reminded me that it was a magician shop for a period of time that I had kind of forgotten about.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
The sign, like a top hat and like the Merlin's cap kind of thing.
Yeah. And there was a guy came in on last Tuesday, and said, "Yeah, my wife and I used to come here for a couples massage." He goes, "Right here, they had 2 tables." Like, okay, there you go.
Service no longer offered.
Right.
And congrats on a great Harvest Fest.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Been there, done that.
Nice job on the Harvest Fest too, Bart.
What's that?
The Harvest Festival. Really nice.
The Vintage Festival. Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah, the Vintage Festival went very, very well. Really well. We raised a whole bunch of money to donate this year. The leading donation will go to the Sonoma Valley Community Health Center. Nice. So, not going to the hospital, going to the health center, which needs the money a lot more than the hospital does.
Delivers
to the community.
Totally.
So it's awesome.
Well, my apologies for bumping up against the technology curve and actually turning the show off. That was me.
If you hadn't told them, nobody would know.
Yeah, well, we're got that little gap in there.
Still be up.
Ed will
Lord willing.
edit that. And speaking of, Ed did get his cases of wine, and he really enjoyed being out here, and he's very sorry that he missed you at the tank.
Almost as sorry as you are that you didn't sell him 2 cases of wine. I think Jasmine cut some deals. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I saw Kelly Cornett posted that she, for her wine club, is supposed to get 6 bottles. Somehow 9 showed up. I said, don't worry, we'll send you a bill for those later.
Yeah.
No fear.
I think she paid it forward. I think we're
Right.
good. Yeah. Thank you, Kelly.
Well, thanks, Peter. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Getting you back
Great
on.
To see my
Tony and I said I
here around the table today.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Drink more Grenache better.
You got it.
drink more Sonoma wine.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.